Hey, Kieran, how's it going? Welcome to the AI 360 podcast. Excited to have you here today.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive in for a second. Kieran, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your role is at Deloitte and what you're working on?
Sure. I'll try and make a long background short. I've been in IT and cyber for over 30 years. I largely use a lot of history and experience as a guide towards what's happening in the future and how the tech landscape is shifting. And so that's actually where I spend a lot of my time. So for the last 10 years plus, I've been building practices to address the changing tech landscape. So mobile, cloud, et cetera, and not surprisingly, most recently AI. Spent about a year and a half as the cyber AI leader for the firm. Have been both building systems for the use of AI internally and transforming the way we deliver services to clients, but also building solutions for our clients. So spent a lot of time in the last 18 months with data science teams and others. And just recently switched to become the innovation and assets leader. So basically I'm putting our money where our mouth is in the AI space.
I love it. And I think like people think the AI leaders are really busy. I got to imagine that AI and cyber leaders are like 2 to 3x busier than everyone else in the world because it's got to be super complex for all the things you're dealing with. So thanks for carving out some time for us.
Yeah, you
Maybe
got
we
it.
could just dive in on some key questions we got for you. So when we think about the AI supply chain, how we get our solutions organized and get them out to the market, what are some things you're seeing in that space as we think about the regulatory environment and the cyber environment?
Yeah, so I think there's obviously a lot going on, and it's different for every company because they're in different stages of their AI journey, right? So you've got some companies who are farther along where they're looking at how do they address the risks they're concerned about, both some of the traditional cybersecurity things we've been worried about for a long time, but also some of the nuances associated with specific use of AI technologies. And then getting to space where historically the cyber team is not really focused, which has a lot to do with toxicity and bias and what we would traditionally look at as data science. Um, so it's the combination of both those fields coming together and moving forward together. Again, there's a big difference between where companies are in the journey along the way.
Well, and one of the things I hear a lot when I talk to clients about, scaling their AI solutions, you want to get these things to production. We're kind of tired of doing all these POCs. But then I hear this conversation of governance and cyber. Like, how do we think about those elements to help these solutions go from, initial use cases and design all the way into production? How do you think about that? What's advice do you have for clients kind of in that space?
Yeah. So first off, make sure your cyber team is involved in the innovation journey. They need to be a partner from the outset. That does require cyber teams to think differently than they previously have. It has to be focused on how to get to yes, not just to default to no because it's scary, right? And I've been in the business for a long time, so I can point the figure out myself as I say that. But it's really working together from the outset because otherwise you will see problems down the line. You're going to get into a POC, you're going to build something, it'll be released, you'll have it in for internal use only, and then the wheels are going to grind to a halt because you don't know how to deploy that to customers and others in a secure fashion and address the risk because you basically skipped all those things along the way. So it's a balance between integrating cyber early on so you're building the right foundation, but not slowing the process down based on kind of a, let's just say, a historical way of thinking about software development.
That's helpful, and I also would imagine too, there's some tools available for the cyber function itself that are AI enabled to help with this, right? Are people looking at that as a way to kind of help match the speed of software development with the speed of cyber together?
Absolutely, absolutely. Generally, and I used this phraseology previously. You're going to fight fire with fire in this case, right?
Yeah.
So the threats are becoming more intense. They are, you're seeing a lot of things around these days, phishing and deep fakes and so forth. That's going to expand. The only way to combat that is going to be by using AI. So as we talk about AI, and you've heard me say this many times, we think about how do you use cyber to protect AI, and we also think about how do you use AI in the business of cyber. And you really should be contemplating both because they're connected from a strategic perspective, and you're not going to have success with one without the other.
And as we think about these threats, what are some emerging things like I've heard of like prompt injection? I mean, I know we're not a deep fake right now, but that's got to be a thing out there. Like, what are some other things out there? Could you explain some of those to us?
Neither of us are interesting enough to be deepfakes.
Perfect.
That's not a defense, but um, So, I mean, yes, there are a lot of nuances associated with AI technologies that are new, right? So you do need to think about prompt injection, but you can also look back to what we've been doing for a long time. These are not necessarily overall new risks to us from a cyber perspective. We've had, injection techniques against applications and web applications for a long time. We've been dealing with for decades, right? So you can look back to what we've been doing and you can look forward to say, well, we're going to have to enhance what we do to address what's nuanced and different related to AI. But you're not rebuilding your entire program. And so a lot of times I ask people to focus on that because it reframes it from, hey, we have to build this the whole new thing to like, no, we're doing some things well. We need to figure out where we need to make improvements and then I have to go after those, not start all over. So certainly that's one way I think about it.
And I think like the other thing I'm wondering too is like how are organizations thinking about their headcount on this team? Like, is it humans plus AI is enough to beat sort of the threats that are coming in? Should people be staffing up? How are you thinking about how are your clients thinking about it?
Yeah. Well, I'm a consultant on this answer. I'm gonna say it depends. Uh, yeah, really, it depends on where you are in the journey. So, in for some periods of time, you might have to staff up with humans in order to address a gap that you can't fill with technology. But ultimately, you should be thinking about control, design, implementation, automation in such a way as you're building into the natural process. And so that's what's going to get you that efficiency and speed and effectiveness later on, right? So,
Wow.
just speaking as an example, we talk about at Deloitte, something we built for ourselves is digital analyst. It's a level one SOC analyst. It looks at all the inbound alerts and events, triages them quickly based on history specific to that client, that environment, technologies, and what's happened before. And it comes back with an answer of, hey, this is what this looks like to me. And by the way, here are all the steps I think we should take to remediate it. That's taken triage from 22 minutes to 2 minutes.
Wow.
So you're really looking for those acceleration points that you can leverage AI basically and automation to narrow that gap and make yourselves more efficient, more effective.
Makes a lot of sense, Kieran. So to wrap it up, what's the big piece of advice or something you want folks to leave with around this topic as they continue on their AI journey and be very cyber aware? What would you suggest?
No, number one is start early, start often, right? Engage the cyber team early on. You have to have some conversations, set the tone. This is about innovation, progress, etc., and we need to enable that, right? Then start to think about, well, how do you approach that innovation in a way that's going to let you accelerate outcomes, right? So rather than trying to build AI systems in the middle of your user land network, put them in an enclave. You have an opportunity to protect them from the rest of the technical environment, as well as use a different set of controls and capabilities within a smaller environmental space to accelerate. Right? You think about a trusted architecture, right? It's going to morph over time, but if you have everyone building towards that trusted architecture, then ultimately you're going to get speed, right? Because you're going to be building to known patterns, et cetera, and using common tools and services and so forth. Um, the last one I would make is if you're just in the early part of the journey, you need to define governance. You need to say what's okay and not okay in your environment relative to the use of AI and AI solutions. Um, and you need visibility. If you don't know what's going on in your environment, know who's using it, how they're using it, et cetera, there's no way you're going to manage the risk associated with it. So if you're the outset, think governance, visibility, that will inform you as to what you need to go do next.
Kieran, this has been great. We could have done an AI 720 here because there's clearly a ton of things to unpack. Really appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us on AI 360. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thanks for having me. All right, talk soon.
Take care. Bye.